Hello there and welcome to my review for Book of Hours. In this video I'm going to give you a quick summary of what this game's about, what I personally find good and bad about it, and a summary with my personal opinion. My goal is to answer the question whether this is a good game or not and whether or not you would like it. So let's get into the basics. First of all, Book of Hours is really an odd nut. It hangs between so many different genres. First and foremostly, though, it is a librarian game. At the beginning of the game, you go shipwrecked at this little village called Brandkrug, and then you inherit the library, start exploring it, and it all revolves around lots of different cards. As you see here, these are my skills. These are the parts of my soul, which are basically also, well, skills of sorts, of a more basic nature, my memories, and my possessions. With these things, you can then interact with all manner of different things in the library. You can use a telescope, you can read books, you can explore the place, you can craft up the forge, you can cook different meals. What for, you might ask yourself? To write your own history. You start the game, answer a couple questions of yourself, and then you will get determined what kind of a background you were. Every background in this game has a different way of resolving his story with this library. This has a high replayability. The game is driven around finding out what happened here, driven around what happened in the world. As the librarian of this place, you are storing a lot of history, and Book of Hours plays in an alternative gothic horror fantasy world that plays in the early 20th century. Pretty much all of the history that you know has been rewritten of sorts. The only things that remain are, well, that tea is best served hot, and some normalcy remains. But the game really plays a lot around the fact that a lot of things look perfectly normal, but work somewhat different. This starts with wordings and ends with various other things where you will be surprised about Brandkrug and its denizens. So, this might all sound a little bit weird and confusing, and that's because this game goes into a direction that most games don't. Basically, you have to find out how to win the game during playing the game. There is no directions, there is no, you have to do this to win the game, and you will find out over the course of the time when you've read enough books and discovered enough secrets, you will find a red line that will guide you to one victory, because every background has different paths to victory, at least two, and there's a lot of backgrounds as well. So like I said, Book of Hours has a high replayability. Each run will be again in the same library. The books will be though reshuffled. They will be on different locations, some of them, and therefore you will have a different approach into the library itself. The exploration part revolves around skill checks. There's 9 different skills, or 8 if I remember correctly, that are all linked to different occult aspects. So here we would need to rack up 11 points of Grail or Heart aspect on an assistant to repair this room and gain access to it. To read a book, we need to match its mysteries in terms of skill points, and pretty much all of this game revolves around a skill check of sorts, or some sort of knowledge that you've acquired out of a book. Okay, so much about the basics. I think I can't summarize it better. There's still more between the lines, but yeah. So, what's supposed to be good about this game, you might ask yourself? Well, it is in this world that you can explore. You see all these items that blink up under my cursor. Each of them has a handwritten little text. It has in-game uses. It has its own modifiers for skill checks if you are allowed to use it. You can inspect each one of them, you can replace each one of them, and there is a bajillion of hidden things in here. To give you a whiff of it, for example, this little book here lying around, this is only findable if you are using the proper skill at the proper place in the library. How to find out? Well, a book tells you which skill and where. And this book, by the way, this one, contains something to win the game with. So there's really a lot of things hidden in this game, and the longer you play it, the more often you play it, the more you will discover. And this is something that I really, really love. Not only there's a lot of meat on the bone, I really like the writing of this game. The descriptions of the items are funny, quirky, sometimes confusing, and you'll need a lot of time to fully understand the occult backgrounds. And there's really, really a lot of things that will confuse you at first, but the more you dive your nose into it, the more fun there is. The depth of this game is quite impressive. I keep discovering things that I didn't know about even after 150 games of browsing through Hush House. I keep finding things where I'm shocked that I didn't find them so far. So yeah, this is one of those games that you really can spend a lot of hours with and still discover things. Also, the experimentation part of the game is very, very, very fun. Not only can you craft at various stations, so here at the kitchen range I can do various foodstuffs ever since the new DLC. This is only included with the House of Light DLC, but also all of these skills that you see down here, this is base game, can be applied to a workstation, and then you can craft various things. Each of these skills that you see here has its own little catalog of things that you can craft with these. Each single one of these. I'm not over exaggerating. Every single one of them has some differentiations. Some of them even have nasty hidden recipes that are super powerful, and guess what? Yeah, the hint is in the books. So all of these things are really, really cool. The crafting allows you to concoct various substances. You can forge things. There's really a lot of things that the librarian can do in Hush House. And as you see here, all of these rooms are meticulously handcrafted and stuffed out with things to discover. It's really, really lovely. So at that end, there's really a lot to explore, discover, and experience in this game. And these things culminate to me into a really, really pleasant game experience. But what's bad about the game, you might ask yourself? Well, here's a couple of things that I need to criticize. First of all, the user interface often doesn't, well, come up to par with the challenges of the game. You see, these are the skills that my librarian has. I can expand this only so far. As you can see, the amount of skills versus the amount of room it takes on the screen is already quite challenging. Sure, we can change a couple of things here in the video area, UI scaling, font size and such, but I really end up rearranging those those boxes and little sliders here more often than I like to do. This is one of the things I really wouldn't know how to solve it better, but at times the user interface can be a little bit clunky towards all the tiny minuscule parts that the game throws at you to manage. Also, there's a little bit of quality of life that I always like to criticize here. So for example, the game has a pretty impressive skill board. As you see here, there's different skill trees. Your skills can be assigned to that skill tree. But for example, you then don't see which skills are assigned to my skill tree here anymore. And it does play a role, because you can do things specifically with those assigned skills to the skill board that you can't do with the others. So it would be really amazing to see these. This is only one of the little things. I think, I fondly, strongly believe that these things will get polished over the time, but yeah. The game is very, very micromanagement intense, and the combination of these problems can be sometimes a little bit infuriating? Nah, not at all. A little bit tedious? Yes, absolutely at times. But I didn't find any of these issues game-breaking or even off-putting. But yeah, might be something that bothers you. Also, the game can be quite hard to get into. When you start out being shipwrecked here at at St. Brandon's Cove, If you haven't played Cultist Simulator before, the previous game from Weather Factory, you might be really wondering what the hell are you supposed to do? I mean, if you just experiment by putting the few cards that you have into the boxes until something fits, you will eventually find it out, but it might be quite bewildering and strange to see all these icons and attachments to all those things, combined with the sometimes quite obtuse and difficult to understand writing, which is absolutely on purpose because it's a game about occult mysteries. But yeah, it doesn't make the game easy to pick up, but it is absolutely worth your time. That's the wonderful thing about it. And last but not least, on the negative side, I must say a couple of things here have very old school feel to them. Old school insofar as, well, for example, I mentioned that catalog of crafting things that you can do with each and every one, with each and every skill. Well, you can only see what you can craft after putting them on the crafting benches. We don't have any option to look at it directly, while I'm recording this at least. There's also a lot of recipes that you can discover via reading books, secrets and all, but there is no notebook function in the game besides being able to label every one of these bookshelves. You see, you can here, you have 2 lines of text on each of one of these bookshelves, but well, another example is that every book that you have mastered to that you have successfully cracked the mystery, when you are acquainted with the text, you can reread them to create new memories, but the game doesn't tell you what memory is produced by each book. It would be quite easy to just attach that information after having solved the mystery, but the game doesn't. It expects from you to do things like I did here. Get yourself a little markers on your shelves. I mean, there are tools to resolve this issue, and in a librarian game, you end up using a pen and a paper to make notes. Sure, but that is exactly what I mean with old school feeling. I personally would prefer a game in these years that just gives me an automatic journal that writes stuff up for me that I have discovered, or gives me at least a more orderly option to write up stuff in game. Because, you know, I am a person who is really having a hard time keeping the papers together at his computer, and my notes always get scattered through my room, and that's why I love to have them digital. But yeah, that's the end of the bad things. I don't have more to criticize. Summary-wise, this is an enchanting game that provides crafting, exploration. The occult and arcane horror theme is so well done in this game. The texts range from cozy to scary to outright shocking when you go into details, and this is something where Book of Hours is really providing a legendary entertainment. I have rarely found myself glued to a game like this because it is like an interactive novel out of the 90s. This old school feeling that I criticized previously is also something very, very positive because it goes... To me personally, I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, and this game has a lot of the cozy and good vibes that I miss from games out of this era. So this is really, really something I totally appreciate. The atmosphere is captivating. There's so much history to this place, and the longer you play it, the more secrets and obvious things you note. And this is something, like I said, I have now 150 hours in, and I'm still discovering things. I'm still feeling like a complete novice between towards some of the knowledge parts of this game. It's lovely. You get a lot of bang for your buck if you are into that kind of thing. If Victorian age and early 20th century gothic horror stuff is up your alley, it doesn't get much better than that. There's no visual gore or anything in this game. Don't expect anything wrong there. Everything is tucked away in tidy words, but there's a lot of yeah, very shocking content. Can't put it into different words. Also, the game has very, very high replayability. I've only finished the game once with one background, and after you've done that, for me personally, it kindled my hunger to find out more. and discover more of these things. It's really, really a lot of goodness there. If you enjoy replaying the same scenario over and over and looking for deeper crumpets, that's really something that you need to enjoy. Overall, the game is complex but rewarding. There's really a lot of things that I do completely differently now than I did them early on when I just understood the game. So yeah, there's really a lot of things that you can do there. So overall, Book of Hours, one of my all-time favorite games. It is sometimes a little bit cumbersome. I really gotta say, leveling up your skills is a little bit cumbersome. Organizing things can be sometimes a bit of a pain. But the payoff is so fine and so wonderful. There's so many things that I like about this game that I can only say, try it out for yourself. If you are into all of the things that I mentioned there, it is absolutely worth a spin. And yeah, not much more to say. Leave me your comments down below, leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and in the description box you can find some ways and means to support my channel. If you feel like my work is worth a dime to you, it would really, really mean a lot to me. Many thanks to all of the supporters of the channel, and a lot of thanks for watching this video. I hope I was able to inspire you to give this game a look-see, because it is one hell of an odd game, but if you like all of the things that this game is about, it totally deserves your attention. That's all I want to say. Have a nice day.